Brandin Cooks, so 40-0.
Yep.
Doesn't play 30-10. And then against Arizona, yeah, he didn't make an impact in the game. Totally get it. It didn't seem like, at least on a lot of replays, that he was getting open. He got open.
Targeted 7 times. He only caught 2 passes.
So I feel like there's only so far one game that he could have made an impact and possibly changed the outcome.
Okay.
The game got away from the Giants and got into the Cowboys so quick on the first game of the year. And then he didn't play against the Jets. So I do feel like I've heard it from not just our show, every show, DallasCowboys.com, Brandin Cooks. But I just feel like it's way too early to be like, gosh, I don't know if Brandin Cooks is going to have an impact. There's only been one game.
So I'm not saying he won't have an impact. I want to know, I guess more to that point, why hasn't it happened yet? And that's a really great synopsis or breakdown of why you think that's the case. But also, it's because of all the stuff we saw in training camp. And again, you've brought this up before. You can see things in spring training, or you can see things in training camp that will not materialize during the season the way you saw them. But that connection between him and Dak was awesome, and I was so excited to see how that would play out in the season.
I will say the Cardinals didn't give a lot of opportunity for some of the things we saw, Kevin, which was, and maybe this is the Cowboys' weakness. I don't know. But they could go deep on the Cowboys' defense every single day. When we were watching the stuff at training camp, Kevin, he was beating Jaron Kearse, which he should. Yep. He should destroy any safety. He should just blow right past him. Whenever we were watching him and other things, he and Dak Prescott had a very good connection on their deep pass. And we were like, man, and we've seen Brandin Cooks be that guy before. He's a speedster. He is also very productive in the game. He can catch big balls downfield. That's where I'm kind of like, okay, I watched the Cardinals game. They said, we're not going to allow you to go deep on us. We're just not going to set you up to have big explosive plays like that. And Mike McCarthy, for what it's worth, is very like, okay, if you're not going to, I'm not going to force it. Now, Kellen Moore was like, force it. That's fine. We're going to push the ball up the field. Mike McCarthy's like, we'll work our way down the field until they finally show us something that allows us to expose that. That's just kind of the way. That's what I'm seeing with Mike McCarthy so far is I'm not going to go force anything. I'm going to take what you're giving me. And if you're giving me all this short underneath stuff, we'll be efficient. We just got to be, what most importantly, we got to be penalty free. We got to be mistake free, and they weren't.
Okay. Go ahead.
But when I think whenever, again, this goes to the first game that he played in, the ball was wet, not a lot of big plays downfield, and not even a necessary moment for it. So if I'm saying when will it happen, it's going to be against a defense that plays single high safety coverage that allows Dak Prescott to say, okay, he's breaking left or right, I can expose him on one side of the field. So I just got to find that defense that's going to do that. The Patriots do like to play a lot at the line. I don't know if they're going to say, you know what, we're going to make Dak do underneath stuff and try and shorten this game, or if they're going to say, hey, we're going to let it, open up a little more.
I know what you said about the penalties, and I think you're spot on about that. If the penalties cleared up and they were just average penalty-wise, like nothing particularly concerning, but the red zone offense still struggled, do you think they would force the issue a little bit more to Brandin Cooks, even if you're hitting the 2 high safeties? Do you think they would force it more?
No. I think that the bigger issue, and I know we're Brandin Cooks talking here, I think the bigger issue is the 3 tight ends. I think that in these 3 games, you should have seen a lot of production and a lot of positivity from the tight ends when you're talking about the safeties playing deep. Now, I get it. You can still throw on them. We've talked about it. Tyreek Hill still gets, I guarantee you, they're playing a deep safety. Whatever side Tyreek Hill's on, they're playing a deep safety. Justin Jefferson, probably the same thing. Chase, probably the same thing. All right, so how do we open that up? What's available to us? They're giving you probably middle of the field tight end stuff. You take advantage of that. You're hitting 6 to 10 yard passes on a consistent basis going, all right, stupids, you want to play deep? We will kill you for 6 to 10 yards every time with different tight end or maybe little slot receiver situations. And then they have to start making an adjustment, and then Brandin Cooks starts eating them up. So to me, I'm concerned that these 3 tight ends are not doing their job.
Okay, that's really interesting because we did ask the question, who else might needed to be added to that list? and you're throwing out there.
The tight end group.
Exactly. And look, we talked about it in game one, and that's one of the reasons why we brought up the red zone offense. I don't want to pretend like we brought it up this week. We talked about that a lot last week. And for a lot of people, the response was, you're 2-0, and if you outscored opponents 70-10, relax.
Yep. Yeah.
And you're like, but it still wasn't good. And the tight ends were part of that. We talked about a drop touchdown from Hendershot. We talked about that drop first down from Jake Ferguson. Now, it didn't end up mattering in the scope of like how the game played out, but you were like, when you get to a more competitive game, I wouldn't have guessed it was Arizona, but here we are.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I know you don't like to do this, Kevin, but after watching that game a lot, I give a lot of credit for Arizona having a very specific plan of action.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys, like for the most part, like it just didn't work. They didn't execute early in that game what they needed to do to stop what Arizona was doing to combat them. So the Cowboys didn't do anything there. For the run, the red zone offense, that's something that Mike McCarthy has to figure out on his own right now.
I will say this. I'm not a former NFL player. Obviously, you guys aren't either. I am a former Major League Baseball player, and I know at times there's times to kind of, in a weird way, not hustle because there's 162 games, and at times, I get it. There's only 17 games, and you're in week 3. I've watched people on YouTube break down the film, and I know that Broadus does a great job of explaining it here on The Fan. I'm not a person that's going to go watch the All 22 and watch one play 12 times to watch every person's actions and see what they do. But I do watch enough YouTube to do this. Whether it's Brandin Cooks, whether it's Michael Gallup, whether it's CeeDee Lamb, whether it's tight ends, whether it's somebody. Why are we half-assing it on certain plays because you don't think the ball's going to go to you? You don't think that Dak Prescott could reverse fields. You don't think that Dak Prescott's going to get pressure where he's going to create 2 to 3 extra seconds, where if you were working your ass off when the ball was snapped, you have a chance of getting separation by 3 yards, let's just say. And because of that 3-yard separation, when Dak gets pressured, because our offensive line was average at best on Sunday, if you'd have worked hard for the first 3 seconds of the play instead of going, you know what, the play's designed to go to the left, I'm wide on the right, I'm just going to jog here and nothing's going to happen, then he creates 2 to 3 seconds and you're like, oh, should I start running hard? Because there's probably 2 more seconds created in this play that I didn't think was going to happen. To me, that's lazy-ass Dallas Cowboys. That's lazy-ass coaching by young Shoddy and Mike McCarthy. And to me, as much as at times I can say I'm uninspired by Dak Prescott, I do believe those players on his team are inspired by Dak Prescott. So why are you uninspired to actually try hard for 3 seconds because you don't think the play's going to you? That's BS, Dallas Cowboys, and you know it. That's the thing is when they say we try our hardest. No, you didn't. You can go on YouTube and watch a good 10 or 15 plays where individuals are not trying hard because they don't believe they're getting the ball.
Kevin, I think Mike just had some fire right there, and I think it's fantastic. There are a lot of people that agree with you on that tight end group for sure. On the other side of the ball, the person that I think needs to like show up at some point, and it showed up I guess in the second half, is whoever's trying to seal off the backside on cutback runs.
Dude, no freaking kidding.
It just felt like over and over the line would push the Cowboys line. And they were like, hey, we got this all closed up over here. And the running back was like, yeah, we know. We set it up that way. And also your guy's over here trying to get my quarterback, and I just ran past him. So like that's something that I would like for the Cowboys. Their over-aggressiveness set them up for failure in the first half. But Kevin, time and time again in the second half, they had offensive opportunities to make that game different, and they weren't able to do it. And I don't know exactly where that lands. Like we're pointing fingers at trying to figure it all out right now. But there are a lot of places where they just did not look like they were functional offensively to beat that opponent. Whether it was, hey, we can just rely on our defense to save us, or whether they just still have some kinks they have to work out within this offense, I'm not really quite certain. But hopefully they can try and get that done against New England this weekend.